rolled on, piping melodiously, of effort and self-sacrifice, full of high purpose, full of beauty, full even of sympathy and the love of men, yet somehow eluding all that was actual and insistent in Leonard's life. For it was the voice of one who had never been dirty or hungry, and had not guessed successfully what dirt and hunger are. Leonard listened to it with reverence. He felt that he was being done good to, and that if he kept on with Ruskin and the Queen's Hall concerts and some pictures by Watts, he would one day push ahead out of the great waters and see the universe. He believed in sudden conversion, a belief which may be right, but which is peculiarly attractive to a half-baked mind. It is the basis of much popular religion. In the domain of business it dominates the stock exchange and becomes that bit of luck by which all successes and failures are explained. If only I had a bit of luck, the whole thing would come straight. He's got a most magnificent place down at Streatham and a 20 h.p. Fiat. Then, mind you, he's had luck. I'm sorry the wife's so late, but she's never had any luck over catching trains. Leonard was superior to these people. He did believe in effort and in a steady preparation for the change he desired, but of a heritage that may expand gradually he had no conception. He hoped to come to culture suddenly, much as the revivalist hopes to come to Jesus. Those Miss Schlegels had come to it, they had done the trick, their hands were upon the ropes once and for all. And meanwhile his flat was dark as well as stuffy. Presently there was a noise on the staircase. He shut up Margaret's card in the pages of the Ruskin and opened the door. A woman entered, of whom it is simplest to say that she was not respectable. This was awesome. She seemed all things, and bell-pulls, ribbons, chains, bead necklaces, and clinked and caught, and a boa of azure feathers hung round her neck, with the ends uneven. Her throat was bare, wound with a double row of pearls. Her arms were bare to the elbows, and might again be detected at the shoulder through cheap lace. Her hat, which was flowery, resembled those punnets covered with flannel, which we sewed with mustard and cress in our childhood, and which germinated here yes, and there no. She wore it on the back of her head. As for her hair, or rather hairs, they are too complicated to describe, but one system went down her back, lying in a thick pad there, while another created for a lighter density rippled around her forehead. The face does not signify. It was the face of the photograph, but older, and the teeth were not so numerous as the photographer had suggested, and certainly not so white. Yet Jackie was past her prime, whatever that prime may have been. She was descending quicker than most women into the colourless years, and the look in her eyes confessed it. "What ho!" said Leonard, greeting the apparition with much spirit, and helping it off with its boa. Jackie, in husky tones, replied, "What ho!" "Been out?" he asked. The question sounds superfluous, but it cannot have been really, for the lady answered, "No," adding, "I am so tired." "You tired?" "Ay." "I'm tired," he thought, hanging up the boa. "Oh, Len, I'm so tired." "I've been to that classical concert I told you about," said Leonard. "What's that?" "I came back as soon as it was over." "Anyone been around to our place?" asked Jackie. "Not that I've seen. I met Mr. Cunningham outside, and we passed a few remarks." "What? Not Mr. Cunningham?" "Yes." "Oh, you mean Mr. Cunningham?" "Yes, Mr. Cunningham." "I've been out to tea at a lady friend's." Her secret being at last given to the world, and the name of the lady friend being even adumbrated, Jackie made no further experiments in the difficult and tiring art of conversation. She never had been a great talker. Even in her photographic days she had relied upon her smile and her figure to attract. And now that she was on the shelf, boys, boys, I'm on the shelf, she was not likely to find her tongue. Occasional bursts of song, of which the above is an example, still issued from her lips, but the spoken word was rare. She sat down on Leonard's knee and began to fondle him. She was now a massive woman of 33, and her weight hurt him, but he could not very well say anything. Then she said, "Is that a book you're reading?" And he said, "That's a book," and drew it from her unreluctant grasp. Margaret's card fell out of it. It fell face downward, and he murmured, "Bookmarker." "Len, what is it?" he asked a little wearily, for she had only one topic of conversation when she sat upon his knee. "Do you love me?" "Jackie, you know I do. How can you ask such questions?" "But you do love me, Len, don't you?" "Of course I do." A pause. The other remark was still due. "Len?" "Well, what is it?" "Len, will you make it all right?" "I can't have you ask me that again," said the boy, flaring up into a sudden passion. "I've promised to marry you when I'm of age, and that's enough. My word's my word. I promised to marry you as soon as ever I'm 21, and can't keep on being worried. I've worries enough. Isn't it likely I'd throw you over, let alone my word, when I've spent all this money? Besides, I'm an Englishman, and I never go back on my word. Jackie, do be reasonable. Of course I'll marry you. Only do stop badgering me." "When's your birthday, Len?" "I've told you again and again. The 11th of November next. Now get off my knee a bit. Someone must get supper, I suppose." Jackie went through to the bedroom and began to see to her hat. This meant blowing on it with short, sharp puffs. Leonard tidied up the sitting room and began to prepare their evening meal. He put a penny into the slot of the gas meter, and soon the flat was reeking with metallic fumes. Somehow he could not recover his temper, and all the time he was cooking he continued to complain bitterly. "It really is too bad when a fellow isn't trusted. It makes one feel so wild when I pretended to the people here that you're my wife. All right, you shall be my wife, and I've bought you the ring to wear. I've taken this flat furnished, and it's far more than I can afford, and yet you aren't content. And I've also not told the truth when I've written home." He lowered his voice. "He'd stop it." In a tone of horror that was a little luxurious, he repeated, "My brother'd stop it. I'm going against the whole world, Jackie." "That's what I am, Jackie. I don't take any heed of what anyone says. I just go straight forward, I do. That's always been my way. I'm not one of your weak, knock-kneed chaps. If a woman's in trouble, I don't leave her in the lurch. That's not my street. No, thank you." "I'm not telling you another thing. I care a good deal about improving myself by means of literature and art, and so getting a wider outlook. For instance, when you came in, I was reading Ruskin's Stones of Venice. I don't say this to boast, but just to show you the kind of man I am. I can tell you I enjoyed that classical concert this afternoon." To all his moods Jackie remained equally indifferent. When supper was ready, and not before, she emerged from the bedroom saying, "But you do love me, don't you?" They began with a soup square, which Leonard had just dissolved in some hot water. It was followed by the tongue, a freckled cylinder of meat with a little jelly at the top, and a great deal of yellow fat at the bottom, ending with another square of dissolved in water jelly pineapple, which Leonard had prepared earlier in the day. Jackie ate contentedly enough, occasionally looking at her man with those anxious eyes to which nothing else in her appearance corresponded, and which yet seemed to mirror her soul, and Leonard managed to convince his stomach that it was having a nourishing meal. After supper they smoked cigarettes and exchanged a few statements. She observed that her likeness had been broken. He found occasion to remark for the second time that he had come straight back from home after the concert at Queen's Hall. Presently she sat upon his knee. The inhabitants of Camellia Road tramped to and fro outside the window, just on a level with their heads, and the family in the flat on the ground floor began to sing, "Hark, my soul, it is the Lord." "That tune fairly gives me the thump," said Leonard. Jackie followed this and said that, for her part, she thought it a lovely tune. "No, I'll play you something lovely. Get up, dear, for a minute." He went to the piano and jingled out a Grieg. He played badly and vulgarly, but the performance was not without its effect, for Jackie said she thought she'd be going to bed. As she receded, a new set of interests possessed the boy, and he began to think of what had been said about the music by that odd Miss Schlegel, the one that twisted her face about so when she spoke. Then the thoughts grew sad and